Ted Price, CEO of Insomniac Games, has announced his retirement plans. Now, I have to be honest with you guys. I have no idea who this is. In fact, I'm quite surprised because all I know about Insomniac is Brian Intihar and some of the artists that are there, but I've never ever paid attention to who was running the ship in terms of, say, all of those decisions. This is usually the case for gaming. I focus on Insomniac and the games that they bring out because I like the Spider-Man game that they dropped, and that's kind of how I got to see their work, and it was really impressive in 2018. And like I said, as someone who was just playing on PlayStation, enjoying games, didn't even really know about what was going on in the console conversation, you won't be surprised if I said something like that to you. But now I know who Ted Price is. However, I want to go ahead and I want to draw your attention to a small timeline that I'm trying to piece together. Because another PlayStation executive, this person probably in a different role than Ted in terms of overseeing games like what Ted's own studio would make, Connie Booth, was also out from PlayStation about a year ago. Now, I'm showing you David Haffey's video here as the source of when he actually started talking about this. I think he made over 3 or 4 videos about the subject matter and was talking about what may be going on in there and so on and so forth. And his insights were very interesting because he's someone who's been at PlayStation years ago. Now, I don't want to go ahead and draw any conclusions. All I'm going to say is I'm going to wait for more information to come out. I'm almost certain that Haffey would more than likely get around this Ted story. We'll probably hear some interesting stuff, but it's not consequential in this particular regard if you don't look at it in the context of Connie Booth leaving, Jim Ryan leaving, Shuhei Yoshida retiring, and Ted Price retiring. And I got to say, Jim Ryan also, he retired as well. This is the context that you have to actually go in and look at all of this information and look at all of what's going on right now. In fact, Shuei has a message, a heartfelt message to Ted, and says, thank you, Ted. Insomniac Games, Ted Price announces retirement after 3 decades. And I'm sure many of these folk are happy to basically be taking the time off after so many years serving and making video games. The question is, what does this mean for PlayStation from a creativity standpoint going forward? Because if we think about what these changes have brought, it appears that there might, be a corporate restructuring that is in order, whether it be designed or whether it be circumstantial. When I say designed, whether maybe they move these people to other places and possibly move them into retirement, but out of necessity, like Shuhei admitted that they moved him from, the position he was to go to indie. And he said it in that kind of funny podcast that if he was in that position, he would have probably pushed against or, pretty much resisted the move to go to live service games. And at the end of the day, you got to ask that question, what's going on in PlayStation? Because Xbox has had some restructuring, had some moves, had some people leave their roles. But I got to say, it appears to me that this corporate shift that's going on, with Jim Ryan having retired and then them basically taking the PlayStation, Sony Interactive Entertainment's PlayStation arm and basically having 2 co-CEOs. And I think Insomniac is also going to have 2 co-CEOs as well in this regard. There seems to be a very, very interesting shift that's probably going to spell the future of PlayStation going down the road. And this is me running in circles because I don't want to draw any inferences just yet. I believe it's probably way too early to go ahead and do something like that. But it's not something I can ignore from a news. In fact, I didn't want to cover this particular news. When Shuhei, Yoshida basically, retired, I didn't cover it. I purposefully did not cover it. I thought, okay, enough time has passed between, the executives leaving their position and, retiring and stuff. And then now that this news is out here with Ted Price, I have to say, ladies and gentlemen, I am somewhat curious. And you can't blame me for being curious because anybody else would be curious as well. And you have speculation, you have comments, you have all of this talk, but I don't need to entertain that. I feel like in today's age, we're going to get more information as time goes on. This is interesting that executives, and, to be very fair, Sony and PlayStation are not the only places, or I guess PlayStation is not the only place where execs are leaving. But guys, we're about to fill up one hand full of execs that have already left within the 1 year plus mark. If we count it in one hand, it will be Jim, Connie, and if you look at Hafi's article, not just Connie and team, according to him. Maybe he's inquiring in this particular video of his. So possibly maybe someone else who is in a critical position as well. I don't know, but I'll count what we know. Jim, Connie, Shuhei, and now Ted Price, of which Ted Price was only over a studio. But I'm not doubtful that Insomniac is probably one of Sony's most pivotal studios in the lineup. Here's the thing. When it's all said and done, it appears that Sony has very important questions to answer in its creative enterprises with PlayStation. We've seen a shift drastically. When I'm talking about a significant transformation going on in the company right under our noses, especially since Activision Blizzard was acquired by Xbox. I mean, you have to actually point, at specific events around the time, not saying that they're direct causes, but it's just interesting. It's almost too convenient that Jim Ryan fights for this Activision deal not to go through, and right after it goes through, he retires. Actually, before he retires, I think Connie left before he did, or maybe right after he did. I can't remember specifically the order. And then there's Bungie acquired to do some work for PlayStation, but it seems like all of what Bungie had basically, been promised, or what they had promised of Bungie, has been morphed because they never met targets. And so Bungie is basically now being restructured to look like it's in the image of PlayStation and what they want it to look like. Right? Then you move on again to the next set of things. You see, say, Shuhei Yoshida leaves. Then now you're seeing Ted Price leave. You're seeing Insomniac have a major leak in its own, coffers. Unfortunate, however, at any rate. But it is naive to think that there are no relationships between all of this. Does that make sense? It would be naive to think that these things are not related in any way. Again, I'm trying my best to not draw inferences. I'm just pointing out what I see here. Now, I may have led you to draw an inference, but again, like I said, it's just so hard to not start, counting on one hand going, that kind of like, what's going on here? But I'll try my best to be patient to see what news comes out and see more details that we can get in this category of the conversation. Because it's just too interesting, ladies and gentlemen. Way too interesting. Chat with me in the comment section. I'd love to know what you think. Be nice. These are people that, have done, I think, amazing things. But it's interesting that the corporate side is just kind of very weird. And perhaps it could be that everybody just came up for retirement at the same time. It's probably why PlayStation was so great, I guess. Peace out.